India will once again look at managing its finances in a disciplined manner. The budget today will likely show the government's commitment to bringing down the fiscal deficit again. Our next report decodes the nuances of India's fiscal strategy for the upcoming financial year. Take a look.
The focus will squarely be on the fiscal deficit target as the budget will be presented on February 1st. But first thing first, what exactly is fiscal deficit? It represents the gap between the government's income and expenditure. Think of it as the financial bridge between what the government earns and what it spends. The government is all set to achieve its target for this year. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman set the stage by announcing a bold fiscal deficit target of 4.9% of GDP for this year. That is a significant drop from the previous year. So how does the government cover the shortfall in revenue? The answer lies in strategic borrowing. The government floats government securities, issues bonds, and even taps into saving schemes to secure the necessary funds. The Reserve Bank of India also transfers huge sums of money from the excess on its balance sheet. As we approach Budget 2025, all eyes are on the Finance Minister's announcement. The Finance Commission recommended reducing the fiscal deficit further to 4.5% by financial year 2026. With the economic survey projecting GDP growth between 6 to 6.5%, the government is poised to re-evaluate its fiscal strategy. Data earlier this month indicated that the nominal growth for this fiscal year is 9.7%, which is below the budget target of 10.5%. India's real growth is projected to have decreased to a 6.4%, and that is according to initial advance estimates. This is due to an unexpected slowdown in the September quarter, during which growth reached a near two-year low of 5.4%. Despite nominal growth data falling short of the objective set in Budget 2024, experts predict that the restrained capital spending and a surge in revenues will keep the deficit aim in control. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And for more on this, we are now being joined by Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist at Bank of Baroda. He's joining us live from Mumbai. Welcome to World Business Watch, Mr. Sabnavis.
Thank you.
First up, what are the most pressing macroeconomic challenges that the upcoming budget needs to address?
So if you look at the economic survey, I think what has been highlighted is that GDP growth has slowed down in 24-25, and even the forecast for 25-26 is between 6.3 and 6.8%, which is not very different from what we're seeing in 25. So what are the main issues which have been highlighted? I think there have been two primary subjects which have been spoken of, which have militated against growth. One is consumption and the other one is investment. Even within consumption, I think there has been a dichotomy. We have seen that rural consumption appears to be on track on account of the good Kharif harvest and possibly a good Rabi harvest. Urban economy has been under pressure. So there has been this kind of stress which has been reiterated by a number of consumption-based companies, the FMCG goods companies. I think they are the ones who have spoken about it, of higher inflation actually eating into the consumption power of households. So that's been one issue which has been nagging the economy. The second one has been investment. So when you're talking of investment, it's both the case of government investment and private sector investment. Government capital expenditure has definitely been slower this year, partly on account of the fact that we had elections and a number of these spending decisions were deferred. We have seen some kind of pickup in the last 6 months, but the question is that will we meet the target which was set for March? Probably not. There could be a shortfall of around 1 lakh crores is what our estimate is, if you also add the transfers which were to be made to the states. And the last part is, of course, in terms of private sector investment. Private sector investment has been lagging. It has not really been at the same level as last year. And our analysis has actually shown that consumer goods industries are not investing. Infrastructure-oriented industries are investing. So it's a kind of a K-shaped kind of a trend which we're seeing in terms of private sector investment. So I think the budget will try and address the issues of both consumption as well as investment through the various measures being to be announced today.
Right, Mr. Sabnavis, how can the budget prepare for global trade disruptions, especially manufacturing and exports? And also talk to us more about the impact of the global uncertainty on the Indian budget today.
So as far as the budget is concerned, we should remember it's more of a fiscal exercise, matching incomes and expenditures. But this said, I think it has to also keep in mind what is happening globally. Now, when we're talking of what American policies could potentially mean for India, there could be higher tariffs which are imposed. So I think the right way to go about it, which I think the government is already doing, is to get into talks with the American counterparts to actually discuss as to which are exactly the pain points. We should remember that while our tariffs are considered to be higher for certain goods, but it holds for goods imported from any country, not specifically United States. So that is going to be the issue which will have to be tackled by the government. And that is something which could be finding mention in the budget. Because if you look at the overall tax structure, customs is the only thing which is within the purview of the budget, given the fact that GST is outside the budget. Excise is more or less fixed. So I think the government could be looking at tweaking some of these tariffs if they are convinced that there is an opportunity for negotiation with America. The other part which the budget can do is, of course, to try and provide incentives to manufacturing to make sure they become more competitive. And given the fact that MSMEs are the ones which contribute largely to our exports, giving any kind of benefit to the MSMEs would definitely go ahead in this effort to improve competitiveness of Indian industry.
Right, Mr. Sabnavis, your big read from the economic survey which was presented yesterday, and more importantly, what do you believe it could perhaps signal the budget which will be presented in just a short while from now? Because the major assessment of the economic survey was deregulation and perhaps asking the private sector to invest more.
You're right. I think deregulation is something which has been a big takeaway from the economic survey, but we should remember that the economic survey only makes recommendations, and they're not going to be implemented necessarily in the budget, because when they pertain to certain industries, the respective ministries would be taking up the issues and taking it on a case-by-case basis. Also, very often, given the fact that ours is a federal economy where we have state regulation, municipal regulation, there would be conversations with states and municipals also to make sure that ease of doing business improves. That's one part of it. But definitely, I think if I take on from what the PM started off with in terms of looking at the middle class, I think there could be some kind of a signaling that probably individuals could be expecting something on the income tax front. But how significant it is and how broad-based it is something which we'll get to know in a couple of hours' time.
Right. While the key focus is on tax reforms and if there will be any relief for the middle class, now for the government to spend from its wallet, we need to understand how much the government actually has in its wallet. So your assessment, how much room does the government have? The question being that is the government in a position to provide any kind of tax relief?
See, if we look at it, I think the starting point of the budget is going to be the targeting of the fiscal deficit number. So last year we had a number of 4.9%, which was targeted. And our feeling is that it will probably come to 4.8%. And the way in which the budgets have progressed, we could probably expect a 0.5% reduction in the fiscal deficit, which comes to around 4.3, 4.4%, depending on what the revised number for fiscal 25 is. So this being the starting point, we'll actually get some idea about what could be the overall fiscal deficit, what in absolute terms, and what could be the overall borrowing in the market, which is feasible to make sure that it doesn't put any untoward pressure on the markets, doesn't put any pressure on inflation and interest rates. So that would be the thing. And generally, we have seen that the overall size of the budget increases by around 8 to 10%. So if you had something like 48 lakh crores, we can expect the size to be around 52, 53 lakh crores. So that would be the additional kind of leeway which is there for the government to do the spending. And I think given the fact that we had fallen short last year on capital expenditure, that particular number may be retained. And we'll have to adjust maybe all the other expenditures like pensions, salaries, subsidies, will have to be adjusted for inflation. So we may probably still be having a space of around 10 to 15% of this increase for additional allocations in real terms.
Right, Mr. Sabnavis, thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights. And of course, we'll know what the budget holds in just an hour from now.